He was a little firecracker. He would run all the time. He would run. He just wanted somebody to play with him. The only friend that Teddy had was Handsome, our golden retriever. Eleanor was for sale at an auction. We got her. We were trying to create a bond with her, and she didn't necessarily want to do anything. We would try to take her for walks, and she really just didn't want to go anywhere. We put her in a stall that had two others who were very small. So Eleanor really didn't want to be around these other animals. So as time marched on and we started to introduce Eleanor to the rest of the horses that we have, she was the same way with everyone outside. She was very standoffish, very aloof to them. She was happy to snuggle up with me, but she didn't want anyone near her. So we thought, this is just who Eleanor is. She's just kind of an independent soul. And so time marched on. And it was after we clipped her and got down to a very thin layer of hair that I saw Eleanor's true condition, because she was no longer covered with hair. Eleanor was pregnant. Her stomach had been getting bigger over these months that we had her. And almost a week to that day, when I went into her stall early in the morning and I saw this baby in there, and I will be completely honest, I didn't know if it was a cat or a raccoon, but it definitely didn't look like a horse. It was tiny, tiny. Eleanor had a baby. It was not expected to happen for at least 7 or 8 weeks. So the baby was premature. We had a real emergency on our hands, and we had to rush them both into the hospital. They were both in desperate condition. I won't say that the baby was a dummy foal, but he was on his way to becoming one. We were nothing but worried about both of their survival. So they both ended up staying in intensive care, and they were able to bring Eleanor into a stable condition. Teddy had to have a feeding tube. The cartilage in his knees hadn't finished growing and developing, so we had to limit his mobility. We couldn't let him run, play. So if we needed to move Teddy around, we literally picked him up and walked with him. Eleanor literally started to thrive in her new role as a mother. She became incredibly happy. She loved being a mother, and Teddy started to grow. And what we saw in Eleanor was this transformation of this grumpy old girl. She became playful. And when we were able to move them back into the barn, Banks, who she lived with, they became like an old married couple. Teddy, on the other hand, didn't find making friends so easily. Eleanor was an incredibly protective mother, and she didn't want anyone to be near him. So we wanted to keep him with our dwarf horses, and Eleanor wanted them to stay away from him. Teddy just had his mom. 3 months later, Eleanor got very sick, and she was in intensive care for about 3 weeks. Teddy had to grow up on his own. Now Teddy needed to make friends. He was trying to encourage others to play with him, but because Eleanor had scared them off for so long, they were afraid to go over to him. So Teddy had Handsome to be friends with, and Handsome would play with him in the paddock, and they would run around together. And little by little, the dwarfs started to recognize that it didn't take long, and he came right into the fold. I started to see on the security cameras, everyone was in a huddle. Teddy was right there in with all of the dwarfs. Eleanor returned home to us after 3 weeks. By now, Teddy was fully weaned for sure. And here we are now. Teddy is going to be 4 years old. He's a very, very fast runner. He may have come into this world small, but he carried a big personality with him.